Look, trust me, mate. Listen to me, yeah. It's starting to fucking bore me all this now. It's just like children. No, honestly, listen to me, yeah. The Jews, when the Jews came, right? Abraham came and said, "There's a God." Everybody agreed. Yeah, fair enough. 10 Commandments, happy days, right? Then Jesus came along and said to everybody, "Wait a minute, right? You're not following the 10 Commandments. This isn't the way we were supposed to live. This is how it's supposed to be done." The Jews said this was blasphemy. He's pretending to be God, or he's pretending to be a prophet without any thingy, right? Whatever. So Jesus was saying, "I am." Before, he was saying Abraham was. Abraham was the prophet of God. He came with the message of God, of the one God for everybody to worship, with the 10 Commandments. When Jesus came, he said, before Abraham was the prophet, I am now the prophet. Right? Nobody believes that Abraham was God. Nobody. The Jews don't believe that. Christians don't believe that. So why do they believe Jesus is God just because he said before Abraham I was? Now everybody, there's a universal agreement that Abraham was a prophet of God. Even the Christians believe that. So if Jesus said before Abraham I am, right, he also says that I can do nothing without the Father. So then when Islam came, because the Christians was worshipping the prophet instead of the actual God, Muhammad came and seen this and said, I don't need to, he didn't need to, look, this is proof that it was from God, because he doesn't need to read the Bible to see that people are worshipping a man. If he sees people worshipping a man, he knows that that's not true God, yeah, because God is universal. You can't have a consciousness. Look, the idea of the Christian Bible is incarnation. So Jesus was the incarnated soul, or someone with taqwa, as Islams would say, somebody with God consciousness, somebody who's fully conscious of what and who God is and their relationship to him, right? So if you've got a creation, you've got a partnership with a creation of the one God, right? Then you are an incarnate soul of Jesus. Look, if God has no beginning, has no end, we are all made from God, right? And everything comes from God, right? That means that I am God experiencing himself, right? I was created by God, and I see things through God. My body returns to God. I am God experiencing himself, a part of him, right? If I am God and you are God, because we are all God, right? We are all pieces of God in its entirety, right? I cannot be God in its entirety, neither can you. If two people have an argument, like me and Jesus sat here now, Jesus and Muhammad, for example, which one is the bigger God? So then they've got to come to a conscious understanding that neither man can be a God, right? Because if they have a disagreement, like we say, who's going to be the bigger God? So the actual God is the quantum biology, or everything that in its entirety, right? The only thing that can, all we can do is interpret it, the message, yeah? We can only decipher pieces of it, of what we can see through our senses. We cannot see the entirety of itself, and even when we do go back to its entirety, we still go back into fractured parts of it. So we will never be God in its entirety. The only thing that can be in its entirety is the creation itself. So man cannot be God. Right, Islam understood this. So Islam came and said, no, everybody is to thingy to Allah. The incarnation of the soul doesn't make sense, because you're going to have people like the pharaohs. The pharaohs incarnated themselves as gods, as physical gods on earth. But like you say, which gods? Which you can't. It doesn't make logical sense. So if we are the world experiencing himself, and Jesus knew that, Jesus said to pray to the Father. All of these books are coming with the same message. Judaism believe in one God, right? Christians come, believe in one God, but they worship the messenger who told them to worship one God. Then Islam came as the final message to say, no, everything in the Torah was correct, you should be following the thing, but then it gave a Sharia law, which broke down the 10 Commandments, put it into a realistic a realistic thing that we can actually test and use in reality. So, because, like you say, the Jews wasn't following their teaching, they wasn't following the gospel. And then when the Injil came, you know, the Christian Bible came, people still, they're not following. How many Christians actually follow the 10 Commandments? None. This is what I'm saying. That none of them, they cherry pick what's in that book, and that's why Allah came with another final prophet to say, no, this is how it should be done, and this is what should be done until the return of Jesus. Now, Jesus knew that another person would come. It doesn't matter how long it'd be, whether it'd be 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. When the technology was here, then people would start becoming conscious of who they are and their relationship to God. Now, if I'm God and I am an incarnate of Jesus, like you say, we've got the information here. So Jesus knew at some point somebody would become conscious with a relationship with God to be able to explain and, into more depth exactly what's going on. The only people that see a difference between a Muslim, a Christian and a Jew is people who look for differences. Look, all you've got to do is look at the similarities. If you look at the similarities, right, the Quran tells you to research the older two books because they've both been corrupted and they've both been changed, which is true. When we see the translations, the way it's been translated and everything, the Quran is the only one that's been preserved, right? Even if the Quran wasn't preserved, somebody would still be conscious enough to see that everything in reality, everything around us, the trees are connected to the water, they rely on the wind to pollinate, they rely on the sun to grow. Everything is in symbiosis with each other. Without one thing, nothing else. So everything boils down to the original elements. So if you boil everything down to the elements, then what you're left with, you've got the four elements. You've got fire, water, earth, and air. But where did these come from? Where did these elements come from? Something conscious had to put them there. So consciousness itself had to have put it there. You see what I'm saying? So consciousness in its entirety, or in its purest form, has the same attributes as a god. Now, people say, well, we can't observe consciousness, but we can, because what's psychology? Psychology is the observation of consciousness. Animal husbandry. There's lots of other things. Life is based upon our interpretation of consciousness. How things work, how animals work, how they dig. I mean, we even call a JCB a bobcat. Why? Because bobcats are good at digging. Like, everything has been, like the birds. We make metal birds from planes. Everything was already here. It's by studying the consciousness that's allowed us to develop into what we are today.